from director Nia DaCosta, who's probably best known for the Candyman, not really a remake, kind of a sequel, reboot, whatever you're going to call it, and The Marvels comes The Bone Temple. Now, it's often being marketed as 28 years later, The Bone Temple, but it is on screen just called The Bone Temple. This is a sequel to 28 Years Later, which was the third film in the 28 Years Later franchise, and this was quite good. The most notable star in the film is Ralph Fiennes, who carries over his doctor character from the previous film, but you also have returning Alfie Williams as the Spike character, which is really the little boy that I think we're going to follow through these new films, and Jack O'Connell as Sir Jimmy Crystal. So if you saw 28 Years Later, at the end, the little boy has survived all of these things, and if you're new to the whole world of 28 Years Later, 28 whatever, the 28 films, it started back in the 90s. It was a horror film about a rage virus that swept through England and the world. It's basically a zombie movie, but they're not really zombies. They're more people who are infected by some virus that just turns them extremely aggressive and feral and perhaps cannibalistic. Definitely meat eaters. You see them eating other animals other than people in this too. So that is the world we live in. You had 28 days later, and then 28 weeks later was the sequel, and then you get 28 years later now. And this film is a sequel to a sequel, and it's very good. It's actually much more thoughtful and contemplative than you would expect for what you would think going in is a zombie movie. Very well shot, performances are really good, and where this picks up almost right where the last film left off, where our young hero Spike, this boy that's just trying to survive in this insane world that he was up to that age more or less protected from where he was living. He is out on his own, and he is taken in by a gang, a faction, whatever, of these people who are all dressed, I'm going to cut right to it, they're all dressed like disgraced former TV presenter in the UK, Jimmy Saville. They all have long blonde wigs and chains and rings, and they all call each other Jimmy. It was something that when it happened at the end of 28 years later, I was like, I wonder how many people in this country are going to understand what those guys are supposed to be. They never really address that directly in this film, but they always talk about charity, and if you're in England, it's probably an added level of creepiness to this. So, 28 years later, Bone Temple, which really sounds like what a guy in college would call his bedroom, is about Spike and in this gang of really terrible people, all who call each other Jimmy, male or female, and trying to survive with this gang while this gang is doing horrendous things to people. The gang leader, the Sir Jimmy Crystal, as it were, is talks about how his father is Lucifer or whatever, and everything he's doing, they're doing for old Nick, I guess it is. And eventually they all meet up with Ralph Fiennes, and it is a matter of who is going to survive and what will be left of them. The tagline from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one of the greatest ever, and still applies to any good horror movie, really. So what we have here is a futuristic, post-apocalyptic, I guess you would say, tale of survival and tribes and factions and trying to maintain your humanity in an inhumane world. You have a subplot in this film of Ralph Fiennes with this, what they call an alpha, one of the biggest, strongest of the, they're not really zombies, the infected, and how he is, Samson, I believe he calls him, huge guy. In the previous film, he was the guy who had the flapping zombie dong all the time. And there is an amount of flapping zombie dong in this film, but not as much. It's Ralph Fiennes trying to find a cure for this guy, trying to humanize this guy and see if he can have a companion, because Ralph Fiennes is this former doctor who covers himself in iodine, so he looks like he's covered in blood, to ward off the infection. And he lives like in an underground bunker, and he's doing tests, and he's trying to listen to old records and maintain his sanity and humanity while he builds these huge towers made of bone, thus the titular Bone Temple. And both films are really how he interacts with other people and how they interact with him. This film has some really memorable moments, one of which involves an Iron Maiden song that had me giggling and laughing. And I think if you're a fan of Maiden or Metalhead, you will really like that moment in the film. But surprisingly, there is a lot of talk in this film, but it's interesting. And it is interesting to just sort of try to put yourself in the head of the Spike character or some of these other characters, and like, what would you do? What would you do if you were part of this gang that thought the thing you're supposed to be doing is just really killing people in really horrendous ways, and that's a good thing? How do you get away from that when you're living in the wilderness and your only other choice for a group to be with are zombies who want to kill you? So very interesting film. Obviously it sets up for a sequel that no movie can be made these days unless there are two that follow it, or that it is one of three, because I don't take a movie seriously unless it's part of a trilogy. But Nia DaCosta did a really good job with this. Dare I say I liked this Dare I say I would have liked this less if Danny Boyle had made it, who had made the other films in the series. It was a much more toned down style in this, which I appreciated. It did do a bit of the shaky crap whenever things got exciting, which I think is lame and just kind of just distracts you from what's going on. But very well shot, very well executed, and very small. Like, it's not huge in scope. It really takes place in about 2 locations over the course of its running time, and I thought it was really good. So this is probably going to be out of theaters by the time you see this, but if you have the chance to see it on the big screen, it plays really great in a theater, and I pretty highly recommend Bone Temple.